Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold feelings on the mind, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name El Sabot, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all in 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? My name is Bob, and welcome to yet another mini-cast in which the Straight Chilling crew will be bringing you a bite-sized version of the show you know and love. There was a new movie that came out this weekend that I saw, and I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about. There's so much new stuff coming out these days, we can't do a proper full-length show on everything, but I did want to take a few minutes and just talk to you guys about Ready or Not. So this movie, right, Cha, was directed by Radio Silence, which if you haven't heard of them before, they're like a writing, directing team. There's 3 of them that work together. They previously did Southbound and that VHS segment called 103198. It was like the last segment on the first VHS movie with a haunted house, which was probably my favorite segment from any VHS movie. Big fan of that one. This movie is starring Samara Weaving. You might recognize her from The Babysitter or Mayhem, and she was also in that big Oscar movie, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. She did a freaking great job in this movie, as she has in everything else I've seen her in. She just she carries a movie very well. It seems almost like effortless when she's on screen. She's just sort of like very much a natural actor. That's how it comes off anyways. But she killed it in this movie. So the plot synopsis, if you're unfamiliar, is as follows. So basically, Samara plays a character named Grace, and she marries into this exceedingly wealthy Domas family who's kind of built a board game empire, basically. And it's tradition that whenever somebody marries into their family on their wedding night, the whole family sits down and they play a random game. And the game is chosen by this kind of mysterious box that was handed down to the family by a person named Mr. LaBelle. And the random game that was chosen on their wedding night was Hide or Seek. And the one thing that sets that game apart from any other game that they might play is that apparently the newest member in the family is hiding, and the rest of the family is hunting them with literal weapons with the intention to murder them before the sun rises. And if they fail to do that, then something terrible will happen. So that's sort of the spoiler-free synopsis of the movie. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. I had a lot of fun watching it in the movie theaters. Probably one of the most fun movies I've seen this year in the theater. It's got some pretty cool gore, some decent kills in it. It maintains a relatively light, fun tone. There are some more serious moments, of course, but there's a lot of jokes in this. Like it'll keep you laughing, keep you entertained pretty consistently. It's a pretty tight, like 90-minute movie, and I definitely recommend you guys go to the theater and check it out. I think I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 5. And definitely go and try and support this one. It's sort of like one of those weird original indie horror IPs that like could definitely fly under the radar, and I think that'd be kind of a shame, especially because this one doesn't suck. So if you have the time, definitely go check it out, support it in the movie theater, and maybe Radio Silence will be able to keep making these dope movies. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that spoiler warning there, and then I'll get into the rest of the movie.
Spoiler warning.
All right. So this is a movie that you probably don't want to be spoiled. I wasn't really expecting any sort of like twists or turns. It surprised me a little bit. But pretty much like what happens throughout the rest of the movie. So yeah, they're all hunting Grace throughout the house, and her new husband Daniel, he's been kind of estranged from the family. He thinks this whole tradition is garbage, and basically what will happen to the family if they fail to kill Grace before dawn, they'll all just die apparently. And you come to find out through watching the rest of the movie that they have made this pact with Mr. Bale, who gave them the box, who is later you find out that Mr. Bale is really just Satan. So they made a deal with the devil to become wealthy as shit by way of selling board games. And every once in a while, he requires a sacrifice, I guess. And this is sort of the way he gets that sacrifice is by randomly having this family hunt a new member on their wedding night. So that's happening, and Daniel thinks it's bullshit. Nobody's gonna die, so he tries to get his new bride out of the house in one piece. At a certain point, he kind of gets captured himself, and they handcuff him to the bed. And some of the family members are actually pretty hilarious. Like he has a sister that's just very coked up, and her weapon is a gun. A lot of the weapons that they use in this movie are sort of like old antique weapons they use like out of tradition. And she's got this tiny little gun. She obviously doesn't really know how to use it, and she accidentally like murders 3 different maids, like in very funny ways. So that's going on, and then this movie also kind of reminded me of Your Next, which we previously did a show on. But Your Next is very much like a home invasion movie, and you're sort of following this final girl as she navigates her way through this mansion, and she incapacitates these people that are trying to murder her one by one. Grace in this movie by no means is like a survivalist like the character in Your Next is, but she's definitely doing whatever she has to do to run, hide, survive, and she towards the end of the movie she definitely starts killing the shit out of this family one at a time, and it's usually very gory. They kind of don't shy away from that at all, so it's got that going for it. And at a certain point, Daniel sort of overhears his aunt saying that like he is the one that's supposed to lead the family. He is the only one that's ever seen Mr. Bale sitting in his chair, and Mr. Bale has this designated chair at the head of the table, but you don't ever see anybody sitting in there, but apparently Daniel has seen him at one point. So he hears this, and he finally gets himself out of the handcuffs, and he goes to save his wife. And as he goes to save her, he sees Grace bashing his mother's face in with the box that was given to the family by Mr. Bale or Satan. And he kind of realizes in that moment that at this point she's endured so much trauma, and she's had to do so many terrible things to survive, that there's no possible way she could remain married to this man. It's just not going to happen. So he kind of turns on her and captures her, and they tie her down to the dining room table, and it's just as the sun is about to come up. They're all standing around her, and then they all say "Hail Satan," and then he tries to stab her in the face with a knife, and she dodges it right as the sun is rising. And the whole family is terrified because they're all ready to die because, she ends up not being killed. And the filmmakers just like let you linger in that moment for so long. And you're like rolling through your head. You're like, okay, so this was all bullshit. You're kind of wrestling with that idea as you're watching this movie. It's like, is this curse real? Is it not? Are these people crazy? How is this movie going to play out? And in that moment, you're just sitting there for like a solid minute, and you're like, oh my gosh, these people have done so many terrible things to this poor girl, and it's all for nothing. It's just because they have these wild beliefs, and now they just have to live with the fact that they're these terrible human beings that have done these awful things. And then suddenly, one by one, the family members start exploding, like with blood and guts flying everywhere, kind of like the end of Suspiria. Spoiler alert for Suspiria 2018, but kind of like the end of that movie. It's and as they're exploding, Samara Weaving, who plays Grace, just starts cracking up, and it's a very funny, very gory moment, and it's like a hell of a way to end this movie that I definitely did not see coming at all. And after that, she just kind of goes and sits on the stoop, lights up a cigarette, and the giant mansion's burning down behind her. The paramedics walk up and they're like, "What happened here?" And she just says, "In-laws," and that's kind of the end of the movie. So it ends with a comedic beat there, and from what I was reading, I guess radio silence, that wasn't the original ending they were intending to do, but as they were making the movie, they realized they wanted the audience to walk out sort of like, clapping and being happy, and originally it was going to end on a very down note where they actually did end up killing Grace and getting away with the whole murder and the whole human sacrifice thing. So I'm kind of glad they went a different route. This movie does kind of get you amped towards the end. You're like, heck yeah, she survived and got to see all these people explode, which is ridiculous. But yeah, like I said, this movie's fun. It's got a lot of gore, some pretty cool kills. Samara Weaving just delivers an incredible performance, and her scream in this movie is like second to none. She kills it. She seems to really put herself, all of herself, in this performance. The family's quirky and funny. It's just a lot of fun. I definitely highly recommend you check it out. Like I said, I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. The Rotten Tomatoes on this, the critics gave it an 87%. The users gave it a 81%. There aren't really any cooters to speak of. The family as a whole is definitely manipulative, and they come off, most of them anyway, come off as very self-important, because they're rich and they got this mansion and whatnot, and they got to deal with the devil, but their attire is actually pretty nice, so that doesn't really go towards the cooterdom, and there's no real sexual deviancy going on at all, so no real cooters to speak of, I'd say. But yeah, I definitely recommend checking this out for sure, and yeah, I think that's all I got on Ready or Not. So get your cheeks in the seats and support some original horror. Until next time, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.